Welcome to the Radio English Conversation Program.
This is the 5th day of our week-long special, Valerie and Jeff on the Road.
This series, we're traveling down the Japan Sea coast from Izumo to Hagi, seeing the sights and meeting lots of great people.
Here I am at Shoin Shrine, dedicated to Yoshida Shoin, one of the key people in the Meiji Restoration. And what first strikes me about this shrine, I'm in the compound now, is that there is sort of a serious atmosphere. The tourists, there are a lot of tourists around, both young and old, but they're all showing a sort of serious interest that's often lacking from a more religious shrine. And it reminds me somewhat of the feeling that we Americans have when we visit the Lincoln Memorial or the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C. I guess this shows the reverence that these people have for Yoshida Shoin and the kind of fascination that the Meiji Restoration still holds for modern-day Japanese.
Boy, Jeff, it sounds like you were right in the middle of history itself.
Well, they actually brought his house and the place where he taught right there to the shrine.
Wow.
So let's visit some of those historical places.
I can't wait.
Right now I'm standing in front of the Shoka Sonjuku, which was the place, evidently, where Yoshida Sensei taught they have several of his students' pictures on the wall, and among them is Ito Hirohumi, who was the first prime minister of Japan. And so many of these men were instrumental in overthrowing the Tokugawa shogunate and establishing the Meiji imperial system. In other words, creating really a new Japan. That you could say that New Japan was actually born in this small 8-mat room. It's really incredible to think that all of those great men were sitting here on these 8 mats and learning under this great teacher. Right now, I'm standing in front of a beautiful old house, which was the place where Yoshida Shoin was placed under house arrest after he was found trying to stow away on one of the black ships which came to Japan under Perry. And calculating, it says here he was born in 1830, and he was executed in 1860, I believe, so it means that he died when he was 30 years old. And to just accomplish the sort of things he did, set Japan on a whole new path, before he was 30, is just incredible. Another thing that really surprised me was that he was such a devotee of knowledge and teaching that he taught the prisoners, pirates and thieves and all of the other people who were with him in the prison. He taught them while he was there. Now we're actually in the shrine, in front of the shrine itself. The very fact that a historical person such as this, what we would view as a political figure, has been enshrined as a deity in itself is quite fascinating to an American. Of course, we do have our civic religion, almost a worship of, say, Abraham Lincoln. But another interesting aspect is that in front of the shrine, there are all sorts of ema tied. And unlike Daisha, where we just have visited, they are praying not for a happy marriage, but for success in school, to get into a good college or to have their grades go up or something like this. I suppose because Yoshida Shoin was such a genius. And unfortunately, I don't notice anybody praying for better English conversational ability.
Gosh. What an amazing character to live until only the age of 30, which is not far away from my age and to have accomplished so much.
I know, he was really a fascinating man. And we could see a whole panorama of his life at a wax museum, which was in that compound.
Wow.
It was very well made. Usually I kind of think of wax museums, but it was very effectively done. And it was quite remarkable. I don't have all the facts in my head, but at a very young age, he had, attained a mastery of the military arts, knowledge of them, and he lectured the daimyo in his area when he was like 11 years old or something like that.
It's amazing. Well, not only the daimyo, which of course I guess is the top honor, but as you said, he instructed many of the greats of the Meiji period.
Well, yeah, certainly. Not knowing, of course, that they would become great after that.
Right.
But, he instructed people of all classes. He had no discrimination in that regard. And so in that sense, he was a very enlightened, forward-looking person, far ahead of his times.
Well, and a true leader, really.
And a sort of will to teach, too. I was searching for people in American history or Western history who could correspond to him. And the only person who really came to mind was Socrates. And like Yoshida Shoin, he was put to death for his strong, fervent beliefs, and yet he had a powerful impact on the following generation.
That's right. It's a good comparison, Jeff.
Well, after that, I talked to a man, Mr. Sawamoto, who told me much more about Yoshida Shoin.
Great.
Well, right now, I'm in a coffee shop. I don't know if I even dare attach such a commonplace name to it. A place called Zokujin Iori. But it is anything but Zokupoe. It's really charming. It looks out onto a garden that is full of beautiful stone sculptures, and on the wall behind me is an original Utamaro print. So I feel perfectly comfortable, and I'm here with Mr. Sawamoto, who is an expert on a whole range of things dealing with ancient Japanese history and Hagi. And he's going to tell us a little bit more about Yoshida Shoin. There are some questions which remain in my mind which I would really like to have answered. どうもこんにちは。まず今、吉田松陰の博物館行きましたのですね。なんか、ロシアの船、そしてペリーのね、黒船を乗ろうとしましたのですね。そういうどういうつもりで外国行きたかったのでしょうか。
それはね、実は松陰先生がこう全国を股に歩いたですね。で、その歩くで一番最初はですね、長崎へ行くんです。
あ、そうですか。
で、その長崎へ行った時にはですね、いわゆる毛利藩のことしか知ってないから、それまでは朱子学の勉強しとったわけでしょ、中国の。で、それは殿様中心の考え方、また江戸中心の考え方。ところが、長崎来ましてね、黒船を見て、大砲その他、これパンを食ったり、ぶどう酒を飲んだりしてね、そういうことが書いてありますけどね、そういう状態を見てね、まず日本が中心ではないっていうことを感じたと思うんですね。
やっぱりですね。
それともう一つね、面白いのは、松陰さんが12歳の時にアヘン戦争が起きてるわけですね。
そうですね。
それから一旦20歳の時には太平天国の乱が起きてるわけです。だから本人が勉強してる中国の教えというその中国の本家がですね、危なくなってる時期だったんですね。
やっぱり。I asked him what was Shoin's motivation for wanting to travel overseas. And he said it all began when Shoin went from Hagi. Shoin traveled all over the country, evidently, and he first went to Nagasaki. And until he went to Nagasaki, he had been studying the philosophy of Chu-Shi, a Chinese medieval philosopher. But when he went to Nagasaki, he saw people eating bread, drinking wine, doing all of those foreign things, and realized Japan was not the center of the universe, as he had previously thought. And then when he was around 12 years old, the Opium Wars occurred, and after that, the Taiping Rebellion. And so he realized from those events that China was also not exactly the powerful, great nation that he had imagined it to be. And this was kind of a disillusionment or a shocking thing. And he realized that the real problem was to protect his nation from the Western powers which were ruling the seas at that time.
松陰さんはですね、大体18歳からですね、3年半かけてですね、全国をずっとほとんど歩いてるんです。北海道は行ってません。それ以外は全部歩いてるんですけどね、大体14,000キロぐらいになるんです。
14,000キロですか？His total travels would be 14,000 kilometers, which is just a tremendous, unbelievable. Even for a person now, that's a lot to travel around in Japan. And so he really got to know the country very well. And in the course of his travels, he saw a great deal of suffering, especially in Tohoku, which was a very poor area at that time. And this really made him think about, what he could do to save his country and put his country on a better track. And I guess that was a major element in his deciding to go overseas. One of the reasons that he evidently wanted to go into America was to see the hospitals, or I believe sanitariums, is what we might say, the Seiryoin as they were called at that time. 松下村塾では、どういうような、規則と言いましょうか、があったのでしょうか。
松下村塾の規則っていうのはみんなで5項目あるんです。
あ、そうですか。
ところがね、その5項目のうちね、勉強せとは一つも書いてない。勉強しなさいとは一つも書いてない。
一番最初はどういうものがあったのですか？
一番最初はね、両親をね、大切にしなさいと。そしてね、いわゆるよそに出たり入ったりするときには自分の身の振り方をね、きちんと報告して出なさいと。それから兄弟を仲良くせとか、それから熟成ですね。年齢がみんな違うでしょ。18歳の人もおれば5、6歳の人もおったわけですから。
そうですね。
それはね、それぞれ大切にね、熟成喧嘩をせんと、みんなで面倒を見てくれ。勉強せとは一つも書いてないわけですよ。
Evidently, they didn't have any rules that enforced studying at all. He was basically interested to see that the students respected their parents, that they got along with their siblings and with one another. In other words, he was interested in creating good human relationships and good people, human beings. もう本当に松陰先生からいろいろ教わりました。ありがとうございました。
You know, it seems he experienced something in certainly magnified form that all of us experience in youth. We become disillusioned with our world. We think our world is the center of the universe, and we discover it isn't.
Yeah.
And it often leads us to do great things.
And according to Sawamoto-san's individual research, he only had 5 months to really teach these students who later became the greats of the Meiji period.
Within 5 months, they became what they are today. Or were they
in that very small classroom. And the irony is that there was, at the same time in Yamaguchi Prefecture, whatever it was called then, there was a great school for the rich and wealthy and the samurai class only. The Meirinkan was the only school in Japan that had a pool, of all things. But no distinguished graduates came from that school.
What a great idea.
It was just this poor little sonjuku, which produced the leaders of the Meiji period. So there's a lesson in that for us even today.
There certainly is.
Well, Valerie, what's on the schedule for tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow's our last day, and we will be climbing into and around the volcano in Hagi, the smallest volcano in the world, and check out natural spots in the area.
So if any of you want to come along with us into the crater of a volcano, join us for the continuation of
Valerie
and Jeff on the road.
NHK では11月3日文化の日、午後1時5分からのラジオ第一放送世界の言葉電話相談で、現在放送中の語学講座を中心に皆さんからのご質問をお待ちしております。電話相談の受付は3日正午からで、電話番号は東京 03-466-5599 番、